Yeah, but hold up, it's Wednesday, man. You know, it's hump day. We got to start off. We got to start off with a little bit of M today because we got him on the show today. LO Spotlight, Greg Wareham. It's your boy. It's Home Team Huddle. Let's go. All right. I can listen to that song all day. What's up, Greg?
What's going on, Eric? How you doing?
Oh man, I'm good. I'm so good, man.
Great choice of songs, man. I love that song.
It gets you going, right? I could just keep playing that all day. Hey, thank you so much for being here today. Greg, man, give us a little bit of intro. What market you in? How long you been in the business? Let us know. What's up?
Yeah. Well, listen, I appreciate you having me on the show today, Eric. So I've been in the business. My name's Greg Wareham. I've been in the industry since 1998. And during that time, for the most part, I've been in the New Jersey marketplace since 2000. I'm originally from New England. I got into the industry, worked in Quincy, Massachusetts in 1998. And then the company I worked for at the time, Champion Mortgage, asked me if I'd transfer down to New Jersey for a new project that they were starting. And I've been here ever since. During that time in the industry, I've been a producer, I've been a branch manager, I've been a regional vice president. I've had a lot of different positions within the industry. But I got to tell you, one of my favorite jobs within the industry is still dealing with clients and working with other loan officers. So that's kind of my backstory on it. Personally, I live in Homedale, New Jersey, father of 4 kids, great wife, and that's it.
All right. So you mentioned New England. You Patriots? Are you Giants? Yes.
So listen,
where we at?
So you learn a lot about yourself, Eric, through the course of life. And diehard Patriots fan. I moved down here in 2000, right before they went on their run. And I was a diehard fan until they let Tom Brady go. And when they let him go, I was like, here's another multi-billion-dollar company cutting someone loose that made him all this money. And then I shifted immediately to Brady in Tampa Bay. And now I'm kind of lost. I guess this year I'm back to being just a New England Patriots fan again.
So I'm going to call you a bandwagoner at this point. At this point, I'm going to call you
I'm a Brady guy.
Oh, man. Listen, we got no beef with the Patriots here. Man. But yeah, man, that's awesome. So New Jersey, hey, that is where I'm from. So talk to us, man. You, like you said, you've worn a lot of hats, right? Right now, you're a branch leader for us, and you're so much more from hosting your podcast to, like you said, right, still in front of the loan, dealing with customers every day. Greg, what do you believe sets you aside, deal per deal, right? Like, what sets you aside from all the other kind of guys that are out there doing the same thing that we're doing?
Well, I don't know if there's anything that necessarily sets me aside, but I do have a very particular bent as to how I handle business. And one of the things associated with that is consistency of what you're doing. I mean, I think that that's probably the number one thing when you look at it is how consistent are people with their day-to-day activities, and kind of breaking that down a little bit, right? So if you look at the word consistent, what's the opposite? The opposite is inconsistent. And I got to tell you, you could call me a lot of different things, Eric, but if someone were to say, hey, that Greg, he's a great guy, but he's super inconsistent, it'd be like stabbing me in the gut. So for me, the consistency of what I'm doing on a day in and day out basis is really critical to what I have going on.
And what does that look like? Give us some tips. Let us know some insiders. What does that day-to-day look like?
So really, I mean, I'm constantly in front of real estate agents. So that is, and I'm very deliberate with what I'm doing. So look, I mean, this industry, after being in this industry for 25 years, you break it down into 3 steps: plan, implement plan, and manage and measure what it is that you're doing. And I think what I would throw out to everyone is, first of all, who's your target audience, right? And the same thing could be held true to social media. But when you look at the mortgage industry, who's your target audience? Are you going after real estate agents? Are you going after financial planners? Are you going after your book of business? Are you going after CPAs? Are you going after first-time home buyers? Are you going after jumbo home buyers? Like, who is your target audience? Once you can understand who your target audience is, and you're probably looking at 3 different business pillars, right? So as an example, real estate agents, book of business, and financial planners. All right, now you have your pillars. Well, what's your plan of attack associated with going after them? And it's got to be super granular. Let's take real estate agents for an example. So I want to go after real estate agents. Okay, great. Well, who? What real estate agents are you going after? And once you've identified, hey, here's the people I'm going after, and not 100 people, give me 10. Who are the 10 people that we're going after? And when you've itemized that, what do you know about those people? You know where they live? You know anything about their family? Do you know their production? I mean, one great thing about online, you can find out all the information you need to know about anybody. But you got to go deep. You got to know who you're going after, and then you go after them. And when I say go after them, it's something, are you calling them? Are you mailing them? Are you emailing them? Are you texting them? Like, what's your process associated with it? And for me, I'm a phone guy. I'm a phone and in-person guy. So I'm going to call you, and I'll set up an appointment to get together with you. And then I really think that my strengths are working with people in person. But I know who I'm going after, and I methodically track who are the people I'm working with, who are the people I'm going after, and what do the results look like? Does that help answer the question, Eric?
It's in so many ways. I mean, we kick it all the time, research, plan, and attack, and it's a form of sniper marketing. You're not going in there with a shotgun shell trying to get everybody, but you're doing your research based off of the person you want to do business with. You also alluded to your talents, right? We talk about it all the time, like knowing where your talent is, right? Are you a phone guy? Are you a cold call guy? Or are you a belt buckle guy? So yeah, you said a lot there, right? Sticking with that mindset, I want to say, we all wake up in the morning and we are in control of really one thing every day, right? And that is our attitude, right? Our attitude and our mindset, right? What advice can you provide, right, on the type of attitude, the type of mindset that's really needed for our LOs listening to our show today? What advice do you have around that?
Well, I mean, that one's right in my wheelhouse because I got a process. And, I get up. So as I said, I have 4 kids, and 2 of them are going back to college. I got 2 in high school. And I've always get up earlier than everybody else. I don't get up at 4:00 in the morning, but I get up early enough to stay ahead of the curve because I want that first half hour of the day is me drinking a cup of coffee and thinking about what I'm going to accomplish for the day. What tree am I swinging the axe on that day, right? And with that, it allows me to give focus. Some people, to include myself, would also look at, what am I thankful for as well? That's part of the process, but it's really kind of that regrouping for the day. The best advice that I could give to people is you have to prepare for your day, and you need to approach it. I'm going to take a page out of Aaron Rodgers' notebook. RELAX. Relax. Figure out what you're going to do that way. Pull the camera back, look at everything for what it is, and then you can methodically and calmly go in and address a particular situation. I had made the comment about the axe on the tree. So if every day you have an axe and you got 100 trees in your backyard, and you take the biggest tree, right? Takes 5 swings at that tree every day. If you do that every day, eventually the tree's going to fall. Eventually you're going to do it. But it's chunking it down and be able to hit it consistently. Again, consistency. What a lot of people do is they come out and they take one swing at one tree every day, and then they're doing it to 100 different trees, and you can never get something to fall. And it requires, again, that planning and that focus in that process of being very clear as to what you're trying to accomplish that day. And listen, accomplishing something in a given day, like for me, I don't sit around and think about, all right, well, how many loans am I going to sell today? Loans are a byproduct of doing all the right activities. I'm more going to look at it and say, okay, today I got the call. I'm thinking about it today. I'm prepared for it. I thought about what we're going to talk about. And, that was a focus of something that I'm going to do today. But I spent the time thinking it through.
Man, dimes, y'all better be paying attention. All right, quick. So consistency, mindset. We're in a market that's changing. We're in a market that we really have to adapt pretty quickly, right? How do you stay on top of it? What are things that you do as far as, what sites do you visit? What do you read? What articles? What do you do to stay on top of all these industry changes?
Well, I mean, again, part of the process, I get a secret for everyone. If you want to know what's going on in the industry, read. It's a big one. You got to read. And there's something about that mysterious Google machine that's fantastic. You can figure out anything that's going on. You can find 5 articles about a topic within a fraction of a second, and you can read through those articles within 20 minutes. That way you can look at different perspectives on different things, so then you can talk about it with people in the industry. One of the things that the industry lacks at times is, if we're going to go in and talk about a topic to, say, a group of real estate agents, we go in to talk about that topic and we're talking at a 500 level, right? They don't get it. And the art of being good at communicating is being able to take complex information and then be able to disseminate it to a group of people in a fashion that they can understand. And you do that through researching it and then preparing for what it is that you're going to say and how you're going to attack it. And not a lot of people can do that just because they don't take the time to do it. When you look at our profession, the hallmark of what we do has to be preparation. And that includes reading about what's going on in the market. In my opinion, that includes self-development, right? What are you reading from a self-development standpoint? And I'm not talking about the pom-pom books, that's not my thing. I want to read things that make me better understand how people think, how I think, so then I can take that information and see how I'm going to fit in to what I'm trying to articulate to people. So, but it's a process, right? You got to put the effort into being able to fine tune your skills. I mean, this is, and I don't mean to sound so cliche, but if you're a doctor or you're a lawyer, if you're a doctor, you got to read every new thing that's coming out in the marketplace. And you have to be able to explain it to a patient that doesn't know anything, so they understand what that new drug does. Same with an attorney. If you need to understand a complex situation, you have to then be able to explain it to your client in a fashion that they understand. And our industry is no different. And we're all fortunate enough to be in an industry where we can make as much or not more money than some of those professions I just highlighted. So why we wouldn't embrace our profession for what it is? It can be a very financially rewarding profession, but we have to learn and we have to grow and we have to be working to get better at what we're doing.
Oof. Perfecting your craft. Read. And for those of you listening right now, I know when someone says read, it's almost like, oh, a book. Listen, there's different ways of getting that stimulation. You know what I mean? Audible. A shameless plug. You know what I mean? That changed my life. So the rah books are one thing, but things that are going to help you kind of advance and help perfect your craft here. In-house, we have in-house toys. We have programs like MBS Highway and different things that you can go and you can get that stimulation every day, but keep it consistent. Like Craig says, put something on the calendar, get your stimulation early. That way you have something in your mind that you could have content, build content, have conversations throughout the day based off of that. So Craig, we always talk about like the outside relationships, right? They're wildly important. Go build, referral partners, realtors, consumers, so many different ways that we can go out there to kind of generate business and build real lasting relationships. But it's very important to also build relationships in-house. Yeah. Our processing teams, our operations staff, right? What's that like for you? Talk to us about the teamwork and that collaboration that you and your team have together.
Yeah, that's a great point, Eric. One of the most difficult things, I came in from the outside, and I know a lot of people have been working together for a long period of time. So, and I came in about 9 months ago. In my and I use concern loosely. My number one thing I was trying to accomplish is I needed to understand who our fulfillment partners were, understand how they think, so we could work together in a very collaborative, cohesive fashion. And kind of coming back to preparation again. So if I'm going to reach out to someone on the fulfillment side, I'm going to be prepared with the conversation that I need to have with them. I'm not going to pick up the phone and be random. I'm not going to pick up the phone and be unprepared. I'm not going to pick up the phone and for the most part be emotional. Problem, solution. And you have to understand, you got to understand this business, right? If there's a problem with a file, you need to understand what that problem is, why it's a problem, and how it gets resolved. One of the most unproductive things you can do from a fulfillment standpoint is battle. Battle, and we're all guilty of it at times, but it's not a time to battle. We need each other. When I look at, my team with Stephanie and Shiny from a processing standpoint, and then of course we have Ed and Meredith and Jackie and all the other people, like it's absolutely critical to me that we're all looking at things from the same perspective and that we're all on the same page, because without them, I can't do anything. I mean, those are such critical roles in what we're doing that they have to be, I don't like to say your best friends, because that's not the case. Not that they can't be, but it's just, you got to be respectful. You got to be honest, and you got to know what you're talking about. And I've done it just from having different positions in the organization or in organizations over time and running fulfillment teams. Like when a loan officer would call and just go off the rails about what they didn't like, I just about hang up on them. Let me rephrase that. I would say, get your facts in order and call me back, because it's not productive, right? You have to be able to understand what's going on so you can facilitate the process and learn and grow.
Oof. And reset your clock. Reset your clock. Pick up that phone. Don't make that an emotional call. Don't send that emotional filled email. But definitely reset your clock. Greg, I got you on. This is selfish, right? Because I know what feedback I need, right? I keep saying right. Like all my videos, I keep saying that word. I have no idea. I don't.
It rolls off the tongue for you, though, Eric.
Man, I don't talk like that. I don't use it in my day-to-day communicate. It's something about video. I start using that word. So your podcast, I've seen them. I've seen several episodes. I love the fact that you bring people from the outside and you give really the people listening to you like that home ownership journey from insurance agents to credit. I've seen them. What type of feedback are you getting, man? This is, again, it's selfish, but what type of feedback are you getting from that podcast?
So it's a great question, Eric. And I've gotten some really great feedback. People that have said some great things about the show. Things that really mean something to me is when someone learns something from it, or they say this really helps me, or wow, I can do this better. I mean, that's what you do it for, right? When you're putting something together, let me start by putting together, and I'll answer the back end of the question. So if you're going to put together some piece of social media, or you're going to put together a podcast, the best advice that I can give is, who's your audience and who are you trying to be? So when I started the podcast almost 2 years ago, we're coming up on our 100th episode, I really thought about it. Like, what am I doing it for? And for me, the answer was education. Look, I mean, this mortgage industry for a guy that grew up in a very urban area, this mortgage industry has been so good to me and my family. And I'm very blessed to have a 25-year career with a certain amount of success in the industry. So I put together the podcast. The whole goal was, how do we educate people? Right? How do we educate real estate agents? How can we try to educate loan officers? And now we're slowly trying to shift into educating the consumer as well. So we're really clear on our focus of what we're trying to accomplish. Now, if we can pull off that, then do we hope that it drives business? Well, certainly we hope that it drives business longer term, but it can't be the number one objective. It's going to be a byproduct of the vision that you're putting into place. And it's a long game, right? So, it's a multi-year project that inevitably will result in a high volume of business. but you have to approach it from the passion of what you're trying to accomplish. And if that's education for you, great. Education's a great place to start. Again, as I said before, you have to be prepared. You have to be prepared with what you want to talk about. You got to be prepared with the guests that you're going to talk to if you're doing a podcast. And then also, how do you want to be perceived? And I'm very self-aware of that. Like the way I want to represent a particular brand when I'm in social media. I don't swear. It's deliberate. It doesn't mean I don't in my personal life, but I'm very deliberate about that. I want to be perceived in a certain relatable, personable, yet educational fashion as an expert in a particular area. And I see a lot of different things on social media, and I the best advice I could give to people is, how do you want to be perceived? Now, listen, I mean, there's some posts that can go out there that can be a little bit more risque, let's say, that can get a lot of likes on it, but does it really help your brand longer term? So you want to be very deliberate about what you're going after. And I'd be more than happy to talk to people about it in more detail. To kind of get back to the original question with feedback, some of the feedback's been great. And I've also had some constructive feedback. And I'll give you a great example. So I have a very close friend of mine that used to work with me in the mortgage industry. And now he's officially out of the mortgage industry. And he has about 4 million followers in social media, Facebook, Instagram. I mean, he's become a influencer. And so I'll bounce some different, I just had lunch with him on Monday, and I'll bounce some different things off of him. So I sent him over some footage from behind the desk that we were doing with the podcast. I said, okay, get this out to your think tank, right? Tell me what people think. And he got back to me in the nicest possible way with, you're sitting behind the desk. They see you from here up, and you're just another middle-aged white guy behind the desk on a microphone. And he goes, my daughter, who's like one of his people that vets everything, she couldn't last more than 30 seconds watching it. And I went, huh. And I thought about it, and I went, you're right. You're right. It took me a while to process that. So what do? So all right, we make adaptations. So we've now switched our format. Now we have more of the couch location. They can see us from a little bit below the waist up, something that's more inviting to the audience, and that creates more consistency for social media, for TV, for anything like that. So I've gotten I've gotten constructive feedback, and I've gotten really good feedback.
Same, man. Same. I don't want to lose it because you touched on it, and I want to go back to this, and I want to talk to everybody listening, man. And it really is about embrace your career. Embrace your career. Craig's dropping a ton of dimes, and he said something earlier that your career allows you to make what some of those other professions that we alluded to earlier. You're talking about doctors. You're talking about people that make over 6 figures a year. You are in a career that you can do that. And then again, we always say it here, paying it forward to those that we care about. You touched on it, and you said that this career has been amazing to you and your family, and you've been blessed. And man, I can say the same. And for the most part, I can say the same about pretty much almost all of our leadership team, that this career has been wildly rewarding. And the same thing that Craig just said too, I want to plug him, because I do that with every guest that we have. Guys, everybody here is approachable. If he says, hey, call me, we can have a conversation, there's really no question. You could reach out to Craig, call him. He'll make some time for you, along with every guest that we have on. That is powerful. So, Craig, I feel like we could stay on all day. There's a ton of topics I know that we can go over. You're talking to a newer LO. Mm-hmm. You're talking to an LO, maybe a onesie twosie guy, that's trying to get over the hump. Someone that's just getting into the industry. The 2 point of views, right? What advice do you have for
them? The first thing I'd start with would obviously be listening, because I'd go through those same questions that I would have for myself. What are you looking to do? Or who are you going after? How are we going to go after them? And how are we going to measure and manage it? So I would start there. And I would challenge them to put things in writing. I'm a big writing person. Like salespeople are infamous for keeping everything in their head. You got to write it down, right? Like if you know who you're going to go after, well, let's write it down. How are we going to track it? How are we going to manage it? How are we going to measure it? So I would go through that. But, the other thing that I would say and this is what I've learned in this industry. There's two types of people, at least professionally, that I've learned. There's casual people and there's serious people. And neither one of them is good nor bad. And I've watched casual people in this industry be capable of jaw-dropping performances for short periods of time, right? And when I say casual, you're not particularly organized, you're not particularly disciplined. You're kind of like, you're the person that someone wants to go out with, which can really be an advantage in driving real estate business, right? Yep. And then there's people that are serious. And serious doesn't mean rigid. It doesn't mean stern. It just means, all serious means is that you have mental organization associated with your business. And I think that people really need to think about, who are you, right? And how do you define yourself? Are you casual or are you serious? And you can tell by the way the questioning goes, it really baits, people to think about it. And most people are going to say, well, I want to be serious about the industry. Okay. Well, if you want to be serious about the industry, we can have a conversation about it as to how you're going to do it. And again, specific. You want to go after real estate agents, give me 10. I want 10. And I want to know about those 10 people. Now, when you have that information, we're going to pick up the phone and we're going to call them to set an appointment. And you're going to have an initial benefit statement when you talk to them. I've been helping other agents in the area produce a more qualified buyer, get their loans to closing more quickly, and help them capture more listings. I want to sit down with you for 5 minutes to have a conversation about that. Have some kind of benefit statement. And then we have that benefit statement. I'm going to break down the detail behind how you're going to support all of those things that you're promising.
Y'all better be listening to this because this is awesome.
Hey, listen, one more thing I want to say about, casual and serious. Listen, and this is a nugget, guys. Not because it's coming from me, just because it's something that I think is a nugget, right?
Do it.
Long-term consistency or persistence will outperform short-term intensity 1,000% of the time. Long-term consistency will outperform short-term intensity 1,000% of the time. And you see a pattern in this industry. It's short, heavy spurts that are followed by not as much activity. And that's why you see this, right? Now, you see this sometimes due to markets. I don't want to weed out the market, but for the most part, it's self-driven. Why do I do this? It's because you live in a world of short-term intensity. I'm focused. I'm doing this. Okay, that's great. And you have to have spurts of that, but the spurts of that are all rooted in a long-term consistency plan. So your income should never, ever do anything but this. Instead, we see this. And that's why, in my opinion.
Consistency.
It's consistency and being self-aware of what you're doing.
Yep. Research, plan, and attack, and keep it consistent. Greg, man, I can't say enough. Ronnie's in the background controlling the cameras and stuff like that. And I believe this is our 7th or 8th program. Definitely not compared to 100 show. This has been great.
Yeah, I mean,
every show, honestly, every single home team huddle gets better and better and better. Even when we took it on the road, it got so much better. And now that we're back in the studio and we're getting guests on like Greg, just great interaction, great questions. And honestly, I think one of the challenges in our business has always been that people like to gatekeep. When they figure something out or they figure out how to be successful, they don't want to share it with somebody. And I think what makes the home team so special and people like Greg is that they're willing to jump in and share their knowledge with everybody, not just the team, but our partners as well. And that's what makes the home team the home team.
You know what, guys? One other thing that I would say, and I'll talk all day. Eric and I probably talk all day about this, but I think as you figure out who you want to be in the industry and where you want to go, a lot of people have this vision of, I just want to be I want to be a top producer. I want to be the best salesperson. I want to be the best salesperson. And that's a great goal. Do you have to be the best at everything? You got to be the GOAT from production standpoint. You got to be the GOAT from everything. And, and again, my experience would say, well, no. What you really want to strive for is, how do I get in the top 5 of every category? How am I a great salesperson? How am I a great follow-up person? How am I great from an underwriting and fulfillment standpoint? How am I great from a communication standpoint? How am I great from a planning standpoint? And but you don't have to be the best in all those areas. The strongest, most successful people in this industry are people that have balance with what they're doing, and that they're targeting, how do I grow in every area? Because even when you look at things from an underwriting standpoint, like, you got to understand underwriting. You have to understand what you can and can't do. And you can't chalk it up to, my LOA does it, or my processor does it, or underwriting will figure it out. I'm not suggesting anyone does that. But man, it is not the way to operate a business. And you are all self-employed. And that's not the way to operate the business. The way to operate it is, you have a pretty good idea as to everything that's going on. That way you can communicate with people that are on your team, and it gives you the opportunity to learn and grow more. Again, not to be cliche, but if you're not growing, you're dying. And in the market that we're in the winter that we're going to go into, you better be prepared. You better be planned out as to what you're going to do and what you're trying to get better at. Because time will go. We all know it'll be 6 months from now. And people are either going to have their head in the sand, or they're going to look for the opportunity in the market. And that's kind of going back, Eric, again, to mindset, right? Look, guys, 20%, 80% of the people in a market like this stick their head in the sand. I know, because this is my 4th time through a market like this, because I'm old and I've seen a lot of them. 4th one, right? And it's not as bad as 2008, 9, and 10. But people stick their head in the sand. They kind of have that defeatist attitude. They look at things from a negative perspective on it. And all I see is opportunity. And maybe I've just self-brainwashed myself over a long period of time, with 30 minutes in the morning thinking about it. I only think of opportunity. I think about, what's the market share that we can capture in this particular marketplace? Because I know from experience that when the market turns around and you've done that market share grab, you're going to make a fortune. Your business is going to explode. But you have to have the perseverance. You have to have the consistency. You have to have the discipline and all the other things we're talking about. And you got to have the fortitude, right? Because it's not easy. This is one of those years where you're working really, really, really hard, harder than you have in years past, and you're making less money. And that's the way it is. That's the way this business is right now for everyone. So you just make the decision as to, where do I want to build and grow, and how am I going to capitalize on the opportunity, because other people are going to be sleeping on it.
Oh, yeah. And that.
Hey, let me ask you a couple of questions, Greg. Easy. Do you mind if I jump in for just like 2 minutes?
Come on. The floor is yours.
I always joke that nobody that's in our business grew up, was playing like baseball in junior high or little league baseball and saying, when I grow up, I want to be a mortgage loan officer, right? When you were younger, what'd you want to be? What was your dream in life?
So I came from, I came, some little backstory on me. I come from the South Boston area before they gentrified it. So if you've seen Goodwill Hunting, you've seen all the 3 families.
Oh, you were a Southie?
Yeah. That's why I actually grew up.
You like apples?
What's that?
I like apples?
You like them apples. And we grew up in a very urban, depressed area. So what happens in those areas is, no one really either fall into the pattern, or you try to figure it out, right? And as you try to figure it out, and I went to community college, and then finally got a 4-year degree, and I decided, maybe it's the age too, Ronnie, that you can appreciate, I wanted to be a stockbroker. I wanted to be in that business, and I did that for about 2 years, man. And I just didn't like it.
Sell me this pen.
That's it. Green is good, right? All those things.
Yeah.
A real true product of the late 80s. And that's what I thought I wanted to do. I did it for 2 years. I hated it. And I got an opportunity to go in the mortgage business. And I never thought I was going to ever be in this business. I thought I'd do that. I thought maybe I could go into, can I be an upper level manager at a company? And I remember the money that I was looking at the time. Hey, if I can make this amount of money, that's great. And I never saw it happening. You never know which way life's going to take you. But I will say this, from the moment that I got my first appointment that I ever went on, Ronnie, I left that appointment. All right, you guys got time for a story? This is a good one.
Yeah.
All right. So
Story
I worked
time.
for Champion Mortgage. And those, Ronnie, do you remember Champion? When your bank says
Of course,
no,
yeah. When your bank says no, our bank says yes.
Yeah, so exactly. So it was a subprime company. We were writing second mortgages at the time. And I was living in Massachusetts, and I get my first appointment. And I'm trying to do a second mortgage for them. So I show up, and they lived in Plymouth, Massachusetts, on top of a hill somewhere overlooking the ocean. I mean, it was $1 million house back when there were no $1 million houses. And I pulled up, I had this old cop car, Crown Victoria, where like nothing worked on it. So I pull up in my car, I'm in like a $50 suit, and I go in and I sell the loan to them. And I walk out, and I'm like, wow, I can do this, right? At least it's fantastic. I really can do this. But then I got a little bit sobered after I thought this was great. I got back into my car, and my car won't start. And the lady's screaming out the window. She's going, is everything okay out there? And I'm like, yeah, everything's good. And I'm under the car banging on the starter with a wrench to try to get the car started. Don't worry about it. It's my brother's car. This doesn't happen. I'll see you next week. And that was my introduction into my first sale as a mortgage person. But when I left and I was driving.
You remember back then we used to call it going on a sit?
I do. Yeah, I used to do it in person.
Yeah. If you said that to some of like the younger generation in our business, say, are you going on sits? They would say, sits? What are you talking about? What is that word?
You have that portfolio, and you have to go to different people's houses. I got some really great stories about some of the things I've seen in people's houses. But anyway, I was understanding I could do it, right? And for everyone on the call, you remember selling your first couple of mortgages. You're like, wait a second, I can do this, right? I can do this. And now we get challenged the longer we are in the industry. And now that we're in a bad market, is how am I going to do this? How am I going to build? How am I going to grow? When I was in the industry, I was on the subprime side with Champion. And then I went to Wells Fargo in 2001. They were still originating subprime business. I was their top subprime salesperson at Wells. And I worked in Parsippany, New Jersey. So this top guy doing, I don't know, $60 million a year in subprime back then. And talking about business channels you go after, for me then it was like, well, I have to go after collection companies. All right, who are the collection companies? How am I going to go after them? And that's how I got in front of them. In 2008, Wells Fargo said, in one day, we are no longer doing subprime loans.
I remember that.
Yeah. It's over. And I kind of start to build a lifestyle on making money in that industry for, 7 or 8, 9, 10 years, however long it was. And I remember coming home to my wife. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't have any real estate relationships. I don't have anybody. I was relying on business channels that no longer exist. And you really had to go back to the drawing board and say, okay, well, what am I going to do? All right, I'm going to go after real estate agents. And then you start bouncing things off of mentors that I had that were on the prime side, right? And telling them what I was trying to accomplish and, trying to get some advice as to how to do it. In 2010, I wrote $130 million in prime business. Wow. After they shut my business down at the end of 2008.
And this was in New Jersey, or was this up in the Boston area?
This was in New Jersey. I moved here in 2000, Ronnie.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that the New Jersey, during that time period, the New Jersey, New York market, it cured itself a lot faster than, let's say, the South Florida area, the Orlando area, some of the other markets. But to still do 100 how many units was that? That had to be like 300 units, no? Because your average loan size was what? 300,000, 250,000?
Yeah, they're pretty low back then. Like I remember they used to have this, they come out with this report because I became one of the top people in the New Jersey market. And they come out with this report with closing. I remember one month it was like 40 loans, another one 30 loans. Like it was just, we were humming through it. And, and I don't say that to be braggadocial at all. I say that to say, here's some kid from South Boston who cuts his teeth in, subprime business. They shut my business channel off, shut it off.
Yeah,
And then,
I
all
remember
right,
this.
well, you either stick your head in the sand or you go, okay, what am I going to do? How am I going to replan? How am I going to go after it? How am I going to implement the plan? I'm going to measure the plan, all those things. And I was fortunate enough to have great mentors in the industry as well. People that I could reach out to. One of them being the social media guy that I was just talking about, who, Ronnie, you've met.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Great guy.
Yeah. So he, and he helped me. He helped me from a standpoint of saying, how much business do you want to do this year? I said 50 million, and he laughed at me. And you know what? He
laughed you because he knew you should be doing more.
Exactly. So anyway.
Hey, Samantha just asked, Samantha Melendez, our, wonderful, crazy, good BDM. She asked, what books do you recommend?
I think it depends on what you want to learn. And I'm not trying to deviate from the question, but different people have different things that they latch onto. So for me, books that I like to read are books that are about mindset, and mindset at a high level. So there's an author out there, Adam Grant, that wrote a book called Think Again. It's a fantastic book as to how to look at what you've been doing, rethink what you're doing to be able to implement it. Because where people fail is their inability to rethink a plan or rethink where they're at or reprioritize things. It's called Think Again, Adam Grant. He's got another great book that is How Nonconformists Succeed. And I may be butchering the title a little bit, but it's really about how non-conventional, thinkers, how do you stay original? How do you stay creative? Because the best defense for a market that we're in right now is to stay in a creative space. There is nothing, and then that's another conversation I have with myself on a regular basis. I try to stay out of the reactive space. And that's a learned behavior over time. 15 years ago, I was in the reactive space. I was running hot. I was mad. All those emotions that you go through in this industry, it can really control you. And if you go into the creative space, it gives you a certain calmness and clarity as to what's going on. So rather than thinking about, all these problems, all right, well, how am I going to stay more creative? How am I going to go after people in a more effective fashion? How am I going to prepare better for a meeting in front of real estate agents? How am I going to get better at taking in information and then being able to break it down and explain it to people in a fashion that they understand? Like, what's your level of creativity? And that book is to answer your question, that book is excellent for. As
loan officers, we typically become very creative due to necessity, right, Eric?
Exactly. It's kind of that. So and that's a great point, Ronnie, because we become creative with how to make a deal work. We're really good at that. I would challenge people.
One of the things, Greg, and this is something that I think a lot of people on our team can kind of relate to. I speak multiple languages, and one of the byproducts of speaking multiple languages is that it makes you more creative. And because languages are structured, the grammar of languages are structured so differently, right? So if you speak English has this very, very specific grammar pattern. And when you're in that grammar pattern, you're thinking just one way, you look at solutions to problems or issues the same, and you don't think outside of the box. And I believe that when you speak other languages or you have experience living outside the United States, it helps you become more creative and think about how to solve problems in unique ways. This is what you were talking about before, about being creative and about, if you're an attorney or you're a doctor, knowing how to ingest information, but then regurgitate it back out in a way that's easy for people that don't know anything, that don't know what LTV, CLTV, DTI, max DTI, HOA, they don't know what all these terms mean. And we all speak with these terms like with impunity, like what, you don't know what this means? But it's that taking that time and understanding from a creative aspect and from how to explain things in a way that even a kindergartner can understand it.
Yeah, that's a great point, Ronnie. Great point. And, I'm going to give you an practical example, right? Before we get the hook, Eric. So, from a practical standpoint, it's like, okay, so I got a podcast and I'm really trying to double down on being more effective at it from a consumer standpoint to drive education and drive business, right? Mm-hmm. And if you go back 2 years ago, I never even posted a picture of my kids on social media. They don't know how to use it. 52 years old. I didn't grow up with it. Ronnie's someone that's learned it. He's from the mortgage industry, renovation end of it. And he figured out, because he put the work into it, to be an expert in that area. For myself, from a creative standpoint, I'm trying to aspire to be better at that. And I understand that it's something that I'm not going to learn in 2 weeks. It's a multi-year project to then try to become an expert in this arena. And I didn't say expert, I use that loosely because you're always growing and always learning, but become really, really good at it, right? And that's an example of creativity. It doesn't directly connect with mortgage in real time today, but it does long term. And it keeps you stimulated with learning and building and growing. And really, commended to Ronnie. I mean, you did that at a very high level coming from the mortgage background.
Thank you. Easy, what do you got, big guy?
Man, I'm. There's time to talk. There's time to listen. I hear you guys talk. All I can think about is a little bit of glory days. I'm here just listening to you guys. Just go off. There's time to speak and there's time to listen, man. And you guys are dropping dimes, so I'm not even trying to have the hook. But in the back of my mind, yeah, I got a little bit of glory days actions for you guys.
Hey, are there any questions out there that we can answer for anybody?
I think Samantha was the only one who asked the question. It was a good question. Hey, top 3 restaurants in New Jersey, Greg.
Oh, man, what a great question. You got the wrong guy. So what are my favorites? Well, let me think about Monmouth County. So in Monmouth County, what do I like? Yeah, I don't really know. That's a guy. I clearly don't get out too much to go to restaurants. The friends usually set up the reservations. I like Asbury Park a lot. So I think there's a whole slew of great restaurants in Asbury Park. So that's
very unique community in Asbury Park.
Oh,
very and quite apropos that Eric was just playing the boss, and the boss is from Asbury Park. Stone Pony, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Man, I'm not going to leave you out there by yourself, Craig. I'm on the same boat. Joey, Ronnie, these guys come down here, and it's like, how do you not know what the top restaurants are? I mean, I just don't get out much.
You know what it is,
so
guys?
I'm not going to leave you out there on that island.
So growing up in that Boston area, so my wife's name's Rachel. So she came up to live with me in 1999. She was my in-house appraiser at Champion Mortgage, and she relocated up here. So she's here, and it's like 9 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night. First day she was there, she's like, well, you want to go out to eat? I'm like, eat? I go, you're in Boston. You can't get something to eat at 10 o'clock. You want to go to the bar? Like it was only pubs. You want a pizza at a pub? Like, what do you want? It's a whole different setup.
Oh, man. Well, I mean, look, you've been awesome, right? Thank you very, very much again. For you guys listening, there was nothing but dimes being thrown your way from our very own. I'm sure we'll hear from Craig again. Thank you, guys. It's your boy. It's Easy. It's Ronnie. It's Home Team Huddle. You already know what we got coming up this weekend. We're out here dodging hurricanes down here, but this weekend is Labor Day weekend. Enjoy yourselves. Embrace the career. Be consecutive. Read. Embrace your career. It's the reason why you get to enjoy yourself and pay it forward. Enjoy your Labor Day weekend. We will see you guys next Wednesday on the Huddle. It's your boy. We'll talk soon.
Appreciate you.
Hey, you all stay on here. Stay tuned, guys.